Hey, everybody, welcome. My name is Eric, and I would like to welcome you to our broadcast tonight. This is the first time I'm doing this, so it's going to be super casual. It's not going to be formal. I am here to answer your questions about how to navigate the Thanksgiving holiday. And so there's nothing wrong with your screen, by the way. That's just the fan in the background here. I'm down here in Florida, and it's still kind of warm down here, but tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and it's going to be a very challenging day, not only for me, but I'm sure for you as well. And so I wanted to take this time to open up this channel of asking questions so that as you approach tomorrow, you've got some ideas on how you can navigate this day. And I'm sure it's really hard for you. I remember the very first Thanksgiving that after I lost my daughter Zoe, and this was in 2014, so just about 10 years ago, 9 years ago. And so, and by the way, if you could please in the chat tell me where you're from, and if you have any questions that we can start queuing up, I will go through these questions over the next couple of hours, and or stay on as long as you would like to stay on. But I'm here to really, again, just answer those questions for you about how to navigate. excuse me, excuse me, how to navigate Thanksgiving. And so, as I was approaching my first Thanksgiving without my daughter Zoe, I didn't know what to expect. Why? Because there was a lot of I was already experiencing a lot of firsts, and I'm talking about first holidays, first birthdays, anniversary dates, things that each time these anniversary dates came up and these holidays came up, it was hard. But it really wasn't until the end of the year, around Thanksgiving and Christmas, when it really started to hit home. And I'm sure that you can understand that, and you may feel the same way. And if you do, let me know in the chat, if that resonates with you, because I know how hard this can be as we're trying to navigate not only the firsts, but even if it's not your first holiday without them, the holiday in general can be just hard, because maybe this person was your person. Maybe this person was the one that you wanted to have around for you, and you never thought that you'd be in this place that you are right now of having to deal with the loss and navigate this. And so, welcome, Esteban. I appreciate you joining us today. You're from Texas and you moved to Colorado. What a great state. I've been there a few times. Hi, Felicia. Welcome. I see your question here, and I will gladly answer that in a few minutes here. As I was getting into that first year, that first Thanksgiving, I knew I didn't want to spend it at home. Fortunately, I had some family friends who lived in another state. I was living in Massachusetts at the time, and they lived in Arkansas. And I was invited down to spend Thanksgiving with them. And I went down there with Zoe's older sister, Arminda. And I have to tell you that, the anticipation of that holiday started to creep in. I'd say anticipation, like the worry, the anxiety, thinking about it started to creep in, and I started to get more worried about it as, the beginning of November started. And I didn't know what to do. I felt all out of sorts. I felt like the grief was harder. I felt like I was crying more. I felt like I was just kind of lost. Again, maybe you can resonate with that, because maybe you're in the same place. And if you are, don't worry about that right now, because I'd love for you to ask the questions, and I can help you to kind of navigate your way through those feelings and those emotions, because they're really tough. But when we got to Arkansas, we were there for a few days before the actual holiday started, and before Thanksgiving Day. And that was a little bit of a distraction, honestly, there with family and friends, and just being able to talk and have the conversation with them about what was going on, in their lives. And just, it was just catching up. But it really wasn't until Thanksgiving Day that it really hit me that Zoe wasn't going to be there. I remember throughout the day, we're talking, or everybody's laughing. They're watching the parade in the morning. I kind of watched the parade, but I had other things on my mind, as you can imagine. We navigated the day just in and out of just having conversations about certain things. And, the turkey's cooking in the background. The whole day, I just kept on thinking about Zoe. I felt almost guilty being there. if that makes sense. I just felt like I was struggling to, not even be there. As Paula just wrote, I would rather avoid the holiday this year. I get it. That's exactly how I felt. And I'm sure you feel the same way, that it's just something that you just want them to go right by. You don't want even want, you don't want to stop on, go and collect your $200, right? You just want to bypass that. And I get that, because it's really hard sometimes to deal with these holidays. And so, and by the way, if you're just joining us, welcome. I'm going to be on for the next couple of hours answering your questions. And please introduce yourself in the chat. Tell me where you're from. And if you have any questions that I can start to answer for you, then about Thanksgiving, navigating the day tomorrow, I would love to do that. In the afternoon on that Thanksgiving day, the turkey's coming out of the oven. People are having conversations. The table activity, if you will, starts to get a little bit more busy, right? The plates are going down. The hot pads are going down. The dishes start coming out and getting placed on the table. And I was there with my daughter, Arminda. And we just both looked at each other and we just started to cry. It just didn't seem real that Zoe wasn't going to be there. And it was a good moment, though. I mean, it was a good moment in the sense that we both understood where we were. We both understood how we were feeling. And honestly, my family and my friends just all circled around us and kind of gave us a big hug. Somebody said something funny, kind of broke the ice, and we all sat down. And honestly, it was very hard to even eat. I didn't have much of an appetite. And honestly, I don't remember much about that dinner at this point, because it was just getting through the day was kind of like my focus. And so as you are approaching tomorrow and, thinking about potentially, I just want to avoid it. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to see anybody. And by the way, I've received some questions ahead of this call tonight where people were asking me, what do I do if I just want to avoid the holiday altogether? So I will get to that. Absolutely, because it's a really good question. But tomorrow is honestly about how you can navigate the day and feel that you can get through it as best possible. And I'm just going to be honest with everybody. It's not going to be easy, but it doesn't have to be horrible. And so what I give for advice here as you're navigating any holiday, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or any other anniversary or day, is to approach that day with the understanding that you're not obligated to do anything on that day. Maybe there are some traditions that are in place with your family and your culture. Maybe there are some traditions that the family partakes in, but at some point, it's okay to take care of yourself. Now, if you have plans for tomorrow and you're not sure if you're going to go, then I'd like to provide a couple of ways that you can approach tomorrow so that you can make it so that you're the one who's, I'd say, in control here of how the day goes. And by the way, you are. First of all, it is absolutely okay to do what you can do throughout the day tomorrow. If that means that you need to stay in bed and either watch the parade or not watch the parade, or if you just need to take care of yourself tomorrow, that's okay. That's okay to do that. If you have already made plans and you've already said, yes, I'm going to show up and go somewhere, and tomorrow throughout the day, you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to do this. I just don't think I can. I don't want to break down emotionally. I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. Then if at all possible, reach out to your host and say, hey, I just really need to be by myself today. It's okay. I'm okay. I just feel like I need to do that. Either way, and even if you feel like you do want to go and you want to be around others because that makes you feel good, that's okay too. There's no wrong way to approach tomorrow except for the one way that works for you. And so please, 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 first thing I'd like to say here is that you got to give yourself the permission to lead the day the way you need to lead it for yourself, because it's okay to do that. And so having conversations with people and being just honest with them, like, I just don't feel like going over there. Or if I do go over there, can we just like have a signal that if I give you the signal, we're going to go? that type of thing. That way you don't feel like you have to be stuck there. And in the holiday in general, though, it's one of those things where we are, we're so used to these traditions. We're so used to having our loved one there with us that it can feel really difficult when we're struggling over these holidays. And so one of the questions that was sent to me over the email, by the way, if you're just joining us, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm going to be on for a couple of hours answering your questions. And by the way, if we get to the end of the 2 hours and I don't answer the questions, all of the questions, I will be sure to shoot another video and give you guys the link for that, which I'll put up on my page. And by the way, this replay is going to be available on my channel for you to watch afterwards. If you need that reinforcement for tomorrow, if you just need to, just kind of get reacquainted with yourself before you actually do anything tomorrow, if you are going to go and do something. But please, enjoy this next couple of hours and ask the questions. If something comes up for you during our conversation tonight, please post it in the chat. If a question comes up and you're like, what about this? What about that? It's okay. There's no wrong questions to ask here, because believe me, we ask a lot of questions in our grief. And when holidays approach, there's a lot more questions that come up. And so again, post your questions in the chat and I will get to those. Absolutely. So the first question that we have here is, why don't I, and this is from Felicia, why don't I want to be around family? I really just don't have that holiday season vibe. And Felicia, you're not wrong. I get that. And being in a situation where you just aren't feeling the vibe, we're grieving, right? You're in a place, and I don't know how long it's been since you lost your loved one. If it's been months or years, it doesn't matter. There's just times when the seasonal vibe just doesn't come in. I know this, I'm going to share a little bit about my first Christmas without Zoe, which was obviously after that Thanksgiving, but I was back at home and I felt that same thing, Felicia. I didn't want to do anything. In fact, I normally had Christmas set up the week or so after Thanksgiving, and it would be set up through the end of the year. And that year, I just didn't feel it. I didn't want to. Actually, I thought it was going to hurt too much to actually set up Christmas afterwards. And so I got to about the week before Christmas, and I was watching A Christmas Carol, the ultimate story of redemption, right? In terms of being able to recognize that Christmas is something that we should be feeling all the year round. But obviously not with Zoe not there. I felt tremendous pain about how I was even going to navigate that day, let alone Thanksgiving. And so I thought about Zoe, and I know Zoe was really into Christmas, and I didn't know what to do. And so the only thing that came to me is, well, I'm not going to set up my entire house. I don't have the energy for that. That's the other thing that happens around the holidays. We kind of feel drained of energy, right? So didn't have the energy to set up everything around the house. But what I did say was I was going to go upstairs. And I had like a 4-foot fake tree. Didn't matter. The girls would set that up every Christmas before then. Excuse me. Set up the tree and just the ornaments. I wasn't going to set up anything else. That was it. So I go upstairs and I go into my attic space, and I started to feel a little bit of energy, like not say seasonal vibe as much as it was a, just kind of like an energy of setting up the tree. And so I pulled the tree down and I found the box of ornaments. I just had one box. And so I set up the tree, on the base, and I set it up and had the lights already built into the tree and all that. And I plugged it all in, and I opened up the box of the ornaments and I lost it. All of the ornaments that were in that box. And I don't know why I didn't remember this, but every ornament in that box was made by Zoe and Arminda. They had every year previously to that, they had made ornaments, and we just added it to the tree every year. And I just lost it. And I wasn't sad. I was almost grateful, and not almost, I was grateful because that was a gift that I was actually getting from Zoe that was going to be able to show up every year from that point on. And so even though I just set up the tree for that year, even though I just had the ornaments on, every time I looked at the tree for the next week, it reminded me of good memories of Zoe Yes, it was sad on Christmas Day, but I'm just going to get back now to Thanksgiving Day. So, understanding why you don't want to be around family, sometimes it's really hard, Felicia, right? It's really hard because we're just feeling so much. Maybe we don't want family to ask us questions about how we're doing. Maybe we don't want to just talk about it because we've talked about it so much that it just hurts to talk more about it. Some people actually feel better when they talk about it, and that's okay too. So sometimes family and friends, and again, this is just a really candid conversation that we're having here tonight. Is that sometimes family and friends don't have your best interest. Sometimes you go to gatherings and people want the gossip. They want you to spill the tea, as they say, right? They want you to be able to talk about what's going on so they can turn around and and share that like a grapevine thing, share it with everybody and all that stuff. And so if you're in a place, Felicia, where you do not want to be around family, just I would invite you to think about why. Where's that coming from? And what is it that you want for tomorrow in terms of just, is it alone time? Is it that you just don't want to, maybe feel like you're going to be emotional and don't want to express that emotion around others? If you can write in the chat what is coming up for you when you think about, like, what is it that is preventing you from wanting to be around your family? And by the way, if it's just, I don't want to be around family, I don't want to be around family, that's okay too. And so there's no wrong answers to this, but tell me a little bit more about, why you don't want to be around the family. And if it is just, again, about the holiday vibe, that's okay too. And so, but tell me more about that, and I will circle back around here on that. So, yeah, so Paul is in here. You're in Ohio. Oh, your granddaughter Zoe was born in May 18 and died May 22nd of this year. So she was only a couple days old. Is that what I'm getting from that, Paula? Um, if you can share that with me, that'd be great. But look, loss is loss. I don't know. I mean, Zoe was only 15, and so your granddaughter, and I'm so sorry about that. And for everybody here, I am heartily sorry for your loss because nobody wants to be in this place. Having to navigate the loss of a loved one it is one of the worst experiences that we can go through as a human, because there's no manual for this. Like, there's nobody yes, they've written books on the 5 stages of grief, but honestly, it's a mishmash of all of that as you're navigating it. There's the emotional ups and downs. There's these firsts, the holidays. There's a lot there that can be really hard to navigate. And not only that, but what about us, right? And it's not that you're being selfish if you want to feel better, but there could be some other emotions, and there could be some guilt and other things that come up for you. Something that may come up for you for holiday stuff might be that maybe you feel guilty going and spending time with others because your loved one isn't here. And so, but we'll talk more about that as well. So yes, for you, Paula, I'm so very sorry about your granddaughter. 2 days, she was 2 days. She was here for 2 days, and she came into your hearts just in those 2 days. And it doesn't matter if it was 2 days or 20 years or 40 years or 80 years, right? It's just, there's love that's there. And as we know, grief is love enduring, and it hurts. And so, maybe a way that you can help your daughter and her family tomorrow is to, just to really kind of be there and reach out to her and ask her, how she's doing. Check in with her throughout the day. Let her know you're thinking about her. If you're going to be able to see her soon, maybe talk about that. I don't know what your plans are, of course, but being able to talk about that with your family, and be open that you're there for her as much as possible is really important. Because knowing you and anybody that's in this room right now, when you're navigating the loss of a loved one, one of the hardest things is when people disappear. People disappear, relationships change. People that you thought were friends and family, they just don't show up. or they're there for a couple of weeks and then they just completely leave you alone. They don't check in on you. They don't see if you're okay, and that can be really hard. Um, and so finding a support system, finding a tribe of people that you can connect with who get you, who understand what you're dealing with, like you are right now. You're connecting with others who understand almost everything that goes on in grief because you're living it. You're taking those steps every single day, and it's not easy. And we don't want to be here. But so for you, Paula, avoiding the holidays because of the pain, I get that. I get that. And so maybe a way to approach this tomorrow would be, again, to reach out to your daughter and check in with her constantly, because when you help others, you actually help yourself. And again, it's not about being selfish here. It's about being selfish, which that means taking care of yourself. It's okay to do that. We are grieving. We most likely were not responsible for our loved ones passing, but we want to feel some sort of sense of responsibility because we just want to help some way. How can I help? How can I, even if it's if you're helping somebody else who's grieving, that's one thing. But if you're the one who's grieving, humans just innately do want to help each other. Every once in a while, though, especially with the loss of a loved one, we can find ourselves struggling to even feel connected with anybody else. Why? Because we've got that brain fog going. We've got just all the emotions, and it's very raw, and it's very deep, and it's very hard. And so there's a lot of raw emotions again that happen and occur around the loss of a loved one, and everybody's different in terms of how they navigate that. We're all different in terms of how we navigate the day. And so my advice to you, Paula, would be to navigate tomorrow in the best way possible that works for you. There's no wrong answer to how you step through the day. There's no wrong answer in what you are doing for yourself or how you're checking in on others. Even if you don't feel like making a turkey or cooking or doing whatever, or in celebrating the holiday in any way, that's okay too. Again, there's no wrong answers here. So everybody just needs to, not needs to, but it's really important for us to navigate that day the best way possible. So I hope that helps some. If there's some more additional questions you have based on that, please let me know. So Sarah writes here, my husband passed away in August. It's been awful. I really don't want to ruin everyone's Thanksgiving. And I haven't committed to an invitation yet because I didn't know how I would be feeling. And Sarah, I'm heartily sorry for your loss. I know that this isn't easy. And so can I ask a question of you? Why do you feel like you'll be ruining their Thanksgiving? Is it because how you'll be feeling potentially? That if you're upset, that it might make you you don't want to uh, be around family and friends and show that emotion? I'm just curious, and I'm wondering here. So, if you could tell me a little bit more about that, I would love to dive in on that a little bit more. And so, and I get it too, by the way, not committing to an invitation because you're just not sure how you're going to feel. That's okay. I believe most people will understand, especially if the loss is recent, that you might not feel like spending time with family and friends. Now, a lot of people definitely have, they want to be around you because they feel like it, being around family and friends is maybe better for you. But it's really comes down to your decision, whether you feel that you would want to be around anybody in the first place. I want to step back for a second and just kind of talk a little bit about how to actually plan for tomorrow, because there's a couple of things you can do. The first thing is, and this is what I did, honestly, moving up to that first Thanksgiving without Zoe. I had, I wrote out a plan. And I'm not talking about something that was 5 pages long or anything like that. There were 3 things that I did. I was invited, obviously, to go to Arkansas and spend some time with them. But before I even got on the plane, I kind of wrote down, I said, okay, on Thanksgiving Day, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be staying at this house with family and friends. And I made a pact with myself that I was going to do as much as I could do, and that was it. And I didn't have a necessarily, I wasn't going to go out and spend money on Black Friday sales. I wasn't going to do any of that stuff. My goal for that day, my plan was honestly to sit on the couch and just be. I didn't have an agenda. I didn't want to create an agenda. I didn't want somebody else to create an agenda for me. And so I had to be very clear that this is what I'm going to do for tomorrow. And you know what? Everyone was, yeah, we're just going to sit here too. It's all good. So typically gatherings, there aren't really agendas, right? It's just maybe the only thing that's kind of timed, if you will, is when the dinner is going to start, the meal's going to start. And so you may find that as you're approaching tomorrow, as you wake up in the morning, you may not want to get out of bed. I would invite you to actually sit up and put your feet on the floor and start your day like you normally would. There's so much power in kind of building a rhythm for your day, even no matter, I'm not talking about Thanksgiving, I'm talking about any day. Why? Because when you do these things over and over again, it actually creates some momentum for you. Meaning and movement are inextricably linked. And so the more that we can keep moving, the more that we actually start to move through the grief. Now, again, I'm not talking about forcing yourself to go anywhere or spend time with anybody. I'm talking about being able to move and kind of get yourself kind of moving so that you have some of that processing that can go on tomorrow, but it's based on your schedule. It's not based on somebody else's. So the first thing is to create a plan. The second thing is to actually, when you get to your event, if you're going somewhere or if people are coming over, do as much as you can. If people are coming over to your house, and you feel like, maybe the distraction of cooking and doing all that is going to be good for you, then great. It's okay to do what works for you. And if at any point you need to excuse yourself, whether you're visiting somebody else or people at your house, it's okay to do that too. Maybe connecting with one or two close people that are at your house or where you're at, and let them know that you're probably going to be struggling. And maybe they're trusted people, that you can trust, that they're going to have your back, that if you start to get upset, you can maybe excuse yourself. Or maybe this is the third part of the plan here, is to maybe you get up to the point where you're about to sit down to dinner and you're like, I can't do this. I have to go. It's overwhelming. And so that's okay too. If you can stay, then stay. If you feel like that's enough, that it's just overwhelming, the whole day is overwhelming, then it's okay for you to go and go back to your house or wherever you are. And that would be it for the day. And there's nothing wrong with that. You're not obligated to do anything tomorrow that doesn't work for you. So I hope that helps some. So yes, like Gail said, I'm so sorry, Paula, for your loss. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so let's go on here. So let's see, Sarah. So I'm afraid of losing it during the day, and I don't think I even have the energy to make it through the day, and that's okay. That's kind of what I was just sharing with you, Sarah, that and everybody here on the call, that yeah, you may not have the energy to make it through the day. However, tomorrow you might feel different. So I invite you to, when you wake up tomorrow morning, you're probably going to be upset. Have a good cry. There's nothing wrong with that. We are emotional creatures. We have emotions. Emotions are there to help us process what we're going through. And so when we're grieving, everything is amplified 10x. All of those emotions are amplified. There's even times when happiness or laughing can be amplified. It's just grief just turns up the volume on our emotions. And so if you feel like you're going to lose it, maybe, and you do want to go, so maybe potentially excuse yourself for 5 to 10 minutes, find a quiet room, maybe go outside, have a good cry, and come back in if you feel like it. But I can pretty much guarantee you that everyone that's going to be there, they're going to be supporting you, knowing that you're struggling. And if there are other situations, and I'm going to get into this in a few minutes about, what to do when there's some family situations that you're just not sure about, then I can walk you through that as well. But so just, yes, I get that, losing it during the day, and I don't think I'll even have the energy to make it through the day. Then do as much as you can, Sarah. Again, there's no obligation to do anything more than that. And if it's possible, if you're going with others, then, maybe set up the expectation that, hey, look, I may not go. And this is good to do ahead of time. Set up the expectation with them tomorrow morning that, hey, look, I'd like to go, but I'm not sure if I'm going to make it throughout the day. Would it be okay with you that if I wanted to go home, you could bring me home? Just kind of that way you don't feel like you're stuck there, right? Which could make it a little bit worse if you feel like you're in a stuck situation. So, okay, I hope that helps there. So let's see. Tom Dixon, I'm currently taking a CEU course online. I just want to jump on and thank you thank you. I appreciate that, Tom. I hope it helps some. I know that holidays are just so very difficult. Whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, even New Year's, right? It's just like we're starting another year and they're not here. What does that mean? What does that mean for us? And it's kind of like the triple whammy at the end of the year here. And so, but you don't have to do this alone. You are supported. And there's a couple of ways that you can feel supported tomorrow. I can tell you that there's going to be a lot of activity on grief support groups. I have my own grief support group called Let's Walk Together. It's on Facebook. It's free. You're welcome to join. I just have some questions at the beginning of the group. It's called Let's Walk Together. I will get the link in here if you wanted to join. But that's a great way to get support. Just because you're with like-minded people who get where you are. And, everybody is at some point going to resonate with what you're saying or what you're feeling. But it's really a community for support there. It's to help you kind of feel that you've got other people who have your back. And so, but again, Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here tonight. And I hope some of these tips and these answers can help you. So JP said, I don't have any family or friends. I lost husband after 30 years of marriage, and I'm 75, will pretty much ignore the holidays. So I'm really sorry that you're in that place, Jay. I know that doesn't feel good. I'm sure this isn't easy as you're approaching this. And so one question I have for you is that, I don't know how long it's been since you lost your husband, and I'm heartily sorry for that loss. Absolutely. Because, that sounds like your husband was your person. He was like your rock and your support and all of that. And now that's not here. And so the question I have for you, Jay, is, as you're feeling this right now, as we approach the holidays, you're more amplified, things feel a lot harder. Is it that there is truly nobody around you that you can connect with? And if that is the case, there's nothing wrong with that. My guidance here would be to get onto an online support group or find a local group locally around you. And I'm not suggesting anything about having to force you to do anything over the holidays. That's not what this is. It's more or less just to get connected to a support system so that you feel like you can be with people on this journey who get you and understand exactly how you're feeling. So I get that a lot, by the way. I get a lot of emails. I get a lot of responses to my videos about I don't have anybody around me at all. All my friends and family have just disappeared. And I am so sorry that is the case, if that is the case. But there are other ways in order to get connected to other people so that you don't feel like you are alone. And it's not the same thing as having your loved one here, but it's the next best thing that can potentially help you to navigate and to take that next step forward. Because I can't imagine navigating this journey literally alone with nothing, nobody, anything like that available to help you to navigate this. So there's online groups, there's in-person groups locally in your community. There are therapists and counselors. There are coaches. There are YouTube channels. There are a lot of options to navigate the difficulties of grief. And some of those and most of those honestly are they're no cost. Like it's just like stuff like this that where we get on and we have a Q&A session. Or there's somebody that's posted some videos that help. And there's a lot of good resources also on YouTube. So I'm not the only person that does this, but So finding those resources around you, Jay, are going to be really important because you don't need to walk this journey alone. And I don't want one person to ever have to walk this journey alone. It's just not fair. So it's already not fair that we don't have our loved one here, but we don't need to double down on that unfairness and not connect with some sort of resource that can help us navigate this. So I hope that helps some. So Diane Martz writes, "Hi, Diane from Ohio. How do you start a conversation when nobody talks about my daughter?" Oh, that's a really good question. Uh, Nobody wants to talk about your daughter. I think the reason is that they don't know what to expect. Again, I'm being candid here, Diane. Um, People don't know to what level you want to talk about your daughter. Um, Maybe one way to approach this would be if you're having a conversation with somebody and they ask you how you're doing. Um, Maybe it would be okay for you to ask back. Would it be okay with you if I share with you, a little bit about my journey and my daughter? And most likely, people will be like, yes. So, um, it's wonderful that you want to talk about your daughter. Um, I love to talk about Zoe. I love her as much as I did the day that she was born. And so, as you guys can see in my above me over here, on my that's Zoe. She's also that's us back there behind me. So I've got pictures of Zoe all around my office here, and I love to talk about her at any point. Um, and I don't talk about her from the sense of the actual loss itself. Sometimes I do, but I really talk about her memory. I talk about what she brought to this world while she was here. And I think that, it's really hard when people don't want to talk because they don't know what somebody's going to say. And so, if you do feel like you want to talk about what happened with your loved one, I would ask that you actually reserve that for your coach or your counselor and instead have a conversation about, maybe it is what you need from your people around you in terms of support. Your daughter, what she brought to this world, how much she, what energy and what people loved about her. And that actually can actually lighten up the conversation. Maybe some things that even made you laugh about her. It's not making fun of her, of course, right? But it's just like, what are some of the things that she used to do that just brought a smile to your face? Those are really engaging conversations. And sometimes it's really hard to have these conversations to begin with. But if you truly feel like you want to talk to your daughter, then go for it. It's okay. Again, there's no wrong ways to approach that day. So I hope that helps some, Diane. Let's see. Paula said, okay, I agree. Yeah, friends disappear. I'm really struggling with that. My best friend of 40 years that has not been there for me or my daughter. I'm so sorry, Paula. It's really hard when relationships change. There were some people that did not even call or show up that were very close to our family after Zoe died. And that really hurt. But I can tell you one thing that's happened since then. I have met and created new relationships that have far benefited my healing than anything that I could have ever imagined. I feel like those are gifts that Zoe left behind. It's the strangest thing. Like they never met Zoe. And I've met so many people in the last 10 years that have enriched my life, that have shown me what true friendship, what true connection, what true support is. And it has been invaluable with those relationships. And I don't know, they've actually been some of the strongest relationships I've had in my life. And I can tell you, and you guys can probably get this too, that when we lose a loved one, a lot changes with our lives. The things that we were doing prior to losing our loved one, we really start to understand and think about what matters most in our lives at that point. It's not the gadgets, it's not any of that stuff. It's not, what the latest trends are for clothing or TikTok or whatever the situation may be. We really kind of get really clear on what matters most to us, right? And what we find is that it's typically those things that can't be bought: love, connection, relationships, support, right? So it's one of those things where being okay to kind of explore what matters most to you, even tomorrow, is going to be really helpful. So what matters most to you? Actually, do me a favor if you guys can. If in the chat, tell me what matters most to you when you think about tomorrow. If it's spending time alone, is it if it's spending time with family, feeling connected, feeling supported? Just tell me in the chat here, and so I'll read through those, of course. So I'm going to move down here to the next question here. This is I'm Kathy in Manhattan. My son passed last February. I'm heartbroken. I can totally understand that. I will see my family tomorrow. I think that I worry about how I will be tomorrow on Thanksgiving. Yeah, Kathy, I get that. It's really hard, again, with family. We're not sure how we're going to be. There's been times in this journey after losing Zoe where, geez, I have, I've been okay talking about her, and then I'll turn around and start talking about her again, and then I'll start to get emotional. It's just, I don't, we're emotional beings. And so here's my guidance though. If you are approaching a situation or a conversation tomorrow, let's say a conversation, not a situation. If you're approaching a conversation tomorrow and you are struggling with thinking that you're going to lose it, what's typically happening is that you're doing what is called bracing. You're holding your breath, because if you breathe, you're going to, maybe blow a snot bubble, whatever happens here, right? But something's going to happen and it's not going to feel great. And you don't want to do that. And so one of the best things to do is that when you get to a place where you feel like you are going to get emotional, at that moment, I want you to stop and pause. It's okay. Just pause and take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath, and maybe two. Why? Because when you're bracing, you're holding something back. When you breathe, you're actually releasing, and that's okay. The release comes on the exhale. So it's okay, and I can guarantee you that within 90 seconds, that feeling is going to pass. And so, being around family and friends, it can be really hard, of course. And so, trying to make sure that how you'll be tomorrow. Just be, Kathy. It's okay. There's no wrong way to approach the day. And again, as I was saying earlier, make a plan for yourself. What can you do tomorrow if you have the ability to go somewhere or not? If you have the ability to go somewhere and you're feeling like you just can't make it through the day, then it's okay. It's just it is. And this, maybe next Thanksgiving is going to be better. Maybe it's going to be harder. Who knows? But focus just on tomorrow. Okay. When I say tomorrow, meaning focus on the present moment when you're there. So what we tend to do, by the way, is that when we are thinking about the future that hasn't yet shown up, there's a lot of worry and anxiety that happens inside. Our brains are really good at making up scenarios. Our brains are telling us that, oh my gosh, I'm going to just lose it. I'm going to be I'm going to be crying and I'm going to embarrass myself, or I don't want to do that around family. Well, we don't know. We don't know because we're not there yet. And when we think about the past and we keep thinking about the past and what happened with our loved one, that can make us feel depressed. So here's the thing. The only thing that we have available to us at any given point is right now, this present moment. We're on this call right now, and maybe you're emotional, maybe you're not. Why? Because you're present. So tomorrow, every moment that you're there, doing what you're doing on that day, just be in the moment. And just take each moment from the next one to the next one. That's it. That's the only thing we can do. We can't take all the steps at one time. We can only take the next step in front of us. So just focus on the moment where you are right there. So I hope that helps some. Let's see here. So, all right. So Penny O'Flaherty. Hi, Eric. I'm from Australia. Oh, welcome. I appreciate you joining us tonight. I'm so sorry to hear about your son. He was 43. Christmas was always a huge for him. And we have his daughter in our care. Someone suggested starting a new tradition in their memory and not sure yet. Okay, so that's awesome. That's a great question, actually. And I think it applies. So holidays, especially the end of the year holidays, are really good for traditions. Why? Because maybe there was something about your loved one that you just want to continue on. Maybe it's too hard to do that. but there's no harm in starting a new tradition. Um, for the longest time, I would bring my girls up to Maine for Thanksgiving with my mom and dad. That next year, I kind of changed it up, and it actually felt better in a way. I did go back up to Maine the year afterwards, and it was hard, but it was a little bit better, if that makes some sense. So, look, new traditions doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you want to introduce something, a new dish to the dinner table. Maybe you want to do something different in terms of volunteering at Christmas time. Or even tomorrow. Maybe you want to do something that actually would honor your loved one's life by doing something for others. Again, when you do something for others, and if you can, by the way, if you can, um, sometimes it's just enough to get through the day. So to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. If you feel like starting a new tradition, one thing that you can try for that, actually a couple things you can try. Somebody suggested that if you're at a gathering and you want to start a new tradition and it's about your loved one, have everybody write out a funny thing that they remember about your loved one. And then put everything in a bowl, put those pieces of paper in a bowl, and then other people can read those because it's going to be pretty funny hearing those things. And look, there's always something funny that you can remember about your loved one. And it lightens up the conversation, and it actually makes you feel like your person is there with you, and they are anyway in spirit. So, yeah, trying a new dish, telling stories about your loved one is another good way. We humans are storytelling beings, and so we get more connected when we share stories with each other. I shared a story at the beginning of this call about that first Thanksgiving. And so you learn a little bit more about me, and you'll probably remember some of the details, but it's another way to connect. And so there's many of different traditions that you can try. Um, so yeah, I hope that helps a little bit there. So Esteban writes, I also want to thank you for this. Oh, thank you, Esteban. I appreciate you again showing up here tonight and for talking. So and Gail, yes, thank you as well for joining in. Any questions that you have here. Let's see, I did have a best friend of 42 years, but she passed this past September. Again, thank you. I'm so sorry to hear about that. Yeah, this is great. So let's see, let me scroll down here. All right. So you know what I don't get or understand, Eric, is how people tell you to stop crying and get over it. Oh, that's the worst, right? Oh, I hate when they do that. So I'm going to share something with you guys that I haven't really shared much with anybody else. I remember probably about 3 or 4 years after Zoe passed, I used to live very close to her resting place, and I would go 2 or 3 times throughout the week. And there was one afternoon after work, I went over to the cemetery. I just wanted to say hi. I just felt like I would be closer to her if I was visiting there. And there was a woman who was an older woman who was about maybe 10 or so spots down. And I was just kind of, I usually there's nobody at the cemetery. So I usually kind of speak out loud when I'm talking to Zoe, maybe do the same thing. But I wanted to keep it down only because she was pretty close. But I kind of saw her walking, and she stops and she said, "I'm so sorry for your loss." I said, "Thank you so much." And she said, "Who is this?" I said, "Unfortunately, it's my daughter." Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then she said, well, "What happened to her?" I said, "Unfortunately, she took her life." Oh, I'm so sorry. And she said, "You know what? You're young. You can have more kids." What? Right. So, and at that point, by the way, yes, I could have turned around and landed on her with all 4 feet, but I didn't want to ever do that. I kind of gave her a look like that. Did you really just say that? And the funny part of this, and I call it funny because I imagine Zoe standing right in front of me, looking at me, go, "Did she just say what I think she just said?" So it didn't get to me. But to your point, Gail, when people say get over it, or you need to stop crying, most likely it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with previous experiences they have had in life where they were not allowed to grieve something. And so maybe they weren't raised in an environment where showing emotions was acceptable. Maybe that makes them really uncomfortable. And so my guidance here would be to connect with others who you can be yourself and release the emotion the way you need to. I had a therapist and I had a coach, and both people kind of got that from me when I needed to. It was unacceptable for anybody to say to me, I need to get over it or stop crying. That would not have gone well. And I'm not saying I would have ever done anything physically or anything. Now I'm saying is that I would have set a red line in the sand that that's not acceptable. You're a human being, and there's absolutely no reason not to show emotions and process your grief the way you need to process your grief. And so if there are people that are in your sphere, your world, who are really close to you, Gail, and they consistently say that to you, if it's a relative, or if it's somebody like a friend, then at least for the time being, it might be okay just to distance yourself from them while you continue to process your grief. So you don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them a justification for why you're grieving. You don't have to apologize for your grief. You're grieving. It's a process. Everybody on this planet is going to have to deal with that at some point. It's just an element of the human condition. And so just go easy on it. Be gentle on yourself. You're not doing anything wrong, and it's okay to grieve. So I hope that helps, Gail. Let's see. Feeling supported means a lot to you. Absolutely, Esteban. It does, man. When you feel like people have your back, when you can walk side by side with somebody who gets it, who understands it. And by the way, there's two things. There's somebody that understands what you're going through. They get it. But somebody who appreciates it not only gets it, but they want to help you through that. So connecting to the people that appreciate what you're dealing with. And I'm not saying appreciate it as if they're like, oh, they're glad. They appreciate what you're struggling with, maybe because they've had to already walk this path and they know how you're feeling. So, and I think we're a pretty good judge of knowing when people are really, truly supporting us and others that are just trying to kind of get the scoop so they can share that with other people. So be around the people that support you the most. And if that needs to be a very small group of people for a period of time, that's okay too. Why? Because there's a concentration in those smaller groups. So let's see, Jeanette, what matters most to me is having a good, one good friend, to be with at this time. Absolutely. I had a friend of mine, his name was Mike. I knew Mike since college. Mike never asked me if he could come over. He just showed up. Mike never asked if he could call me. He just called. I had other good friends that were also checking in on me. But I can tell you that after a couple of weeks after we laid Zoe to rest and everybody went back to their lives, that's when I was really like, okay, I really feel alone now. That's why it is so important to connect with a support system. Again, online support groups, in-person groups in your town or your community. Could be a counselor or a coach. It could be a virtual meetup group. It could be an in-person meetup group. It doesn't matter. There are resources around you, online, offline, that can really help here. So yes. So let's see, support group. Oh yes. You see, she actually met, Jeanette actually met at the support group and we help each other. I love that, Jeanette. That is so cool because now you feel like you've got a sense of kinship with them, right? They get it. They know how you're feeling. You could call her up and be like, you know what, I'm feeling this way right now. And that's a great time to kind of share stories and experiences of how each of you have navigated those situations. There's nothing more important in grief than to find a support system. And if it's one good person, that's okay, because that one person might be the person that actually helps you to get through this fully. You can talk to them at any time, and so it's just one of those things. So if you can find that, great. And again, if you can't, there are other options that I just talked about a few minutes ago. So let's see here. Betty says, this is my third Thanksgiving without Lee. The first two I focused on cooking for my grandson and his wife. They are super supportive. We had a quiet celebration, talked about Lee, and relaxed. I love that. And thank you very, very much, Betty, for sharing that, because ultimately that's hopefully where everyone's going to be in a few years. I can't guarantee that the first year was good for Betty. It may have been really hard, but as you continue to move forward on this journey, you're going to find that the weight of the grief is going to slowly fall off your shoulders. Every little step that you take forward, even if it's a millimeter, it's still progress. But every step you take forward, every step you go forward, you're going to lose a little bit more of that heavy grief. Why? Because you're moving forward. You're wanting to get to your better days. You're wanting to feel better. And by the way, you are never leaving your loved one behind if you feel better. A lot of people feel really guilty for feeling better. Well, if I feel better and I'm happy, then I never loved them in the first place. I'd like to dispel that myth tonight, that no matter if you have a good time tomorrow and you smile and you're having a good time, that doesn't negate your love for the person that's no longer here. Why? Because we're human. And if the situation was reversed and you weren't here and they were, let me ask you, would you want them to be happy? Would you want them to be as happy as possible and not worry about you? And if that's the way you would feel, then I believe that's the way they feel about you having a good time now. I actually laughed. My dad and my uncle were cutting up in my kitchen the week after Zoe died, and they were saying something that just brought me back to when I was a kid. And I laughed so hard that I was crying. I was wheezing. I was laughing so hard. But then I caught myself like, what am I doing? My Zoe isn't here. It felt really weird. But I also realized at that moment that I am human and I'm emotional. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to cry. I'm going to be angry at times. I'm going to be afraid of things at times. I'm going to be in disbelief at times. There's no reason why the whole experience of our emotional being can't be expressed in grief, including laughter. So laughing and feeling okay doesn't mean you didn't love your loved one. It just means that you love them even more. Why? Because you are honoring them by carrying on in your life. You're never going to not love them, by the way. I remember a few months after Zoe died, I was worried. I'm like, am I going to forget her? Am I going to stop loving her? And like I said earlier, I love Zoe as much as I did the day she was born. So for you, I hope the same thing applies here. So Betty, thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope tomorrow's Thanksgiving is even a little bit warmer for you as well. So thank you. This year we'll be with a friend to join us. You know, it's funny. I just started talking about tomorrow and I didn't see that message below. But so this year we'll be with a friend to join us. I'm not doing well at all. Oh, I'm so sorry. Not getting things done and nothing more than stay in bed. So, you know, it may feel like you're kind of sliding backwards in your grief, especially around this holiday. It may feel like, well, I don't understand. The last couple of Thanksgivings, I was doing okay. Spending it with people. I focused on cooking. For your, like you said, focused on cooking for your grandson and his wife. And maybe you don't have to get anything done tomorrow. Maybe it's just okay to be tomorrow and just be with yourself. Or if maybe you can spend it with other people without having to worry about cooking. Cooking is or at least doing things when others are around. I consider it a healthy distraction. It is a distraction because we're not giving any time necessarily to the grief itself and processing it. So what's happening here, Betty, is that because you're not getting anything done or doing anything necessarily for tomorrow, you're able to kind of connect with the grief on a little bit later. So maybe tomorrow is a processing day for you. It's probably going to be hard, and I'm sorry that you said there will be a friend that joins you. Be in the moment tomorrow. Stay present. Don't worry about the future that's not here yet. Just be in the moment and see where things take you throughout the day tomorrow. Maybe you'll find that a great conversation is to be had with you and your friend about this that really helps you to kind of break through what you're feeling right now. Maybe it will be harder. Again, I'm being candid here, folks. It could be harder, but the fact that you're going to be with people is probably going to help. At the very least, it's going to help. So if you can be with people, again, there's no pressure to do anything like that. So Gail C said, it's almost 4 months. Yesterday, I lost my sister, Teresa. I'm lost and broken without her here anymore. And all the first holidays without Teresa, I'd rather not. Of course. Yeah. Like I was saying earlier, Gail, there's moments when we feel like we just want to zoom through the holidays. Like, can we just pass these things by, not stop, not even deal with it? And so for each of these holidays, the best we can do is the most we can do. If that means that you stay in bed and you binge watch TV, so what? If that means that you order DoorDash, so what? If that means that you actually have the energy to get up and go out and do something, okay. There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong answer. There's no one right way to navigate the day except for the one way that works for you. And so if I could offer some guidance, maybe tomorrow, connect with a grief support group and kind of talk about the day, how you're feeling. I'm sure other people will jump in because I'm sure they're feeling the same way. I know I'll be on there a little bit tomorrow, just kind of talking about it. I've got some family and friends in town here. Just between you guys and I like to spend the holidays with a little less people. And even though this is family and friends, I'm going to just be tomorrow. I have no plans. I don't have an agenda. The only thing that I know is that we're going to eat at some point in the afternoon. That's it. That's what I'm allowing myself to do tomorrow. That's my plan. And if at any point I don't feel like I can do that, I'm going to come upstairs and spend some time in here. Maybe I'll do some reading. Maybe I'll watch some TV in my room, whatever. So there's no one right way to do this. So I hope that helps a little bit. So let's see here. So Yolanda says, I can't believe that a person said that. Oh, so yeah, I know. Yeah, you're so young. You can have more kids. She knew she said it too, by the way. She knew she said it. It was kind of funny. I laugh about it now, of course, but yeah, it's just sometimes people just do not have the right words. Sometimes people say stuff unintentionally and it's hurtful. Sometimes people say stuff that is intentionally hurtful for whatever reason. I don't know. I just tend to distance myself from those folks. Not saying that I cut them off. There's an opportunity there for people to say, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. Oh, the other day, family friend came into town here at our house, and she's lost a lot of weight, and she's so proud of that. And I went to hug her, and I said, "Oh my God, you are half the person you used to be." See, it's like it happens sometimes. We say stuff, and but I called it out right away. I said, "I'm so sorry. That is not what I meant." So we had a good laugh about it. It was clearly not intentional. I was trying to say that she looks great because she seems to be like half the size that she was, and she loves all this, and she's happy with the way she looks. And so, anyway, it was kind of funny. So let's see here. Let's see, Yolanda. I was on my way to visit my husband at the cemetery. I got hit by grief. I cried and screamed. Yeah, I've been in the car and done that as well. Luckily, it's not a very busy road. Sometimes, Yolanda, with the emotions, we just have to release them. I remember probably about 18 months after Zoe died, and I had gotten stuck in a pattern. And maybe you guys can recognize this as well. It was a pattern of guilt, where I worked in downtown Boston, and I had to take a commuter rail back to the town I lived in. And so I would get off the train in my town, and I would get in my car, and it would usually be about a 2-mile drive back to the house. But inevitably, by the end of mile 1, I would drive by a street that I used to live on with my girls, and it would just hit me. I'd start crying. And then I would start really saying some things that weren't helpful to myself. Like, I'm so sorry, Zoe. I should have been a better dad for you. You should be here right now. Like all of those things, I was beating myself up over losing her. And I wanted to turn the clock back. I couldn't, of course. And none of us can. But there was one day when I got off the train and I had been thinking about Zoe the entire way home. The second I got in my car and shut the door, I lost it. I sat in that parking lot for about 10 minutes, crying my eyes out. Though I was crying so hard that my eyes were puffed up and the windows were all fogged. I couldn't even see. It was the middle of winter too. I didn't care. And now on the way home, I'm trying to drive. I pulled myself together enough where I could start driving. And as I'm driving, I'm getting more and more upset. Now I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm so sorry, Zoe. You should be here. I can't believe that you're not here. And it was as if Zoe was sitting in the seat next to me. I heard her say, Dad, cut it out. I'm okay. And I kind of froze. And I sat there and I stopped crying immediately when I heard this. It was in my head, of course. And I stopped crying and I thought about it for a second. I'm like, she's right. I did everything I could for Zoe while she was here. I didn't make the decision, unfortunately, she made the decision to end her life. Of course, I want her here. But I did as much as I could do for her. I didn't know this was going to happen. None of us really know that we're going to lose our loved one. If it's a long illness, that's one thing, but a lot of times it's for sudden. And so it's really hard to navigate that. And so we tend to kind of take on that responsibility of feeling like, that we were responsible in some way. And yeah, I'm her dad. There's always, hindsight's always 20/20. There's always things that we could have done. And then we want the clock to turn back so we can turn around and fix this thing that's unfixable. And we can't. And so that kind of can snowball and make us feel really guilty. But here's the thing with guilt and any other emotion that we're feeling is that it's typically telling us to take a different action. So when we are feeling guilty, and if anybody's feeling guilty about maybe going tomorrow, and if that's wrapped up in there, there's 3 things you can do here about the guilt. The first thing is to become aware of it. Why? When you're aware of it, you actually can call it out and it doesn't give it as much power. You're aware of your guilt. You know that you're feeling something. Call it out. Write it down on a piece of paper. I'm feeling this way about going tomorrow. I feel like if I go, then I'm not loving my loved one, whatever it is, being aware of it. The second step is to accept that you are feeling that way because you're human. Accepting it and then reframing how you're going to approach it. Because typically when you become aware and you accept it, you're also accepting that it may not be the truth of the situation. I was not accepting, at least initially, that I did do everything for Zoe. So in that moment in the car, when I realized that I was aware, right, that oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Zoe's right. I did do everything for her that I could at the time, and I can't change it. So what I couldn't change what happened, but I could change what happens next. And that's so very important in this 3-step process here is to be aware, to accept it, reframe your mindset around it. What's the truth, the real truth? And then what is the action I'm now going to take that's different? So in this case, when I'm riding home and I had that incident where I screamed out and I said that, and she's like, Dad, cut it out. I'm okay. My action was that the next time that I ever felt guilty about Zoe not being here, I was going to remind myself that I did everything I could and that she is okay now. So I hope that helps some in talking about that a little bit. So let's see here. Yeah. So actually, there's a couple other questions here. So I don't see any other questions in the chat right now, but there's a couple other questions that I did get that I do want to cover here tonight. And if anything else comes up for you guys, please tell me. If you're just joining us, by the way, please introduce yourself in the chat and tell us where you're from. And if you have questions that come up, please ask. I'm going to be on here for another about 50 minutes or so. And I'd love to be able to help you navigate the day tomorrow. And by the way, let me just ask you guys, if you can write in the chat, is this helpful for you so far? Is there anything that I'm missing? Is there anything that you'd like me to talk about around Thanksgiving? Please put that in the chat and I'll be glad to kind of talk more about that. While you're doing that, hey, Grindle, welcome. So there's one question that came up here. So what do I do about nosy or unsupportive family members? Right? I'm talking about the folks that like to, so tell me about this, tell me how you doing. You just can smell it a mile away when they're not being authentic, that they're just trying to, pump you for information so they can kind of share it with other people and gossip and all that stuff. And sometimes that doesn't feel too good, right? And honestly, when we're grieving, we're very vulnerable. And so my guidance on this is that if you are going to be around nosy or unsupportive family members or friends, limit what you share. You're not obligated to tell them anything. You're not obligated to tell anything to anybody. The obligation is with yourself. What do you need in order to navigate that day? What do you need in order to navigate that minute, maybe that moment that you're feeling vulnerable and hurt? If somebody asks and you don't want to share, and say, I really appreciate you asking how I'm doing. But right now, I really don't feel comfortable talking about it. Okay. And not that you're looking for approval on that thing. And if they persist, then I would just walk away. It's not appropriate for people to push. So it's not appropriate for people to try to cross those boundaries that you're setting. And so again, if somebody's asking you and you just don't feel like talking to them, or you don't feel like that's a person that you would feel would be supporting you or have your back, you can say again, thank you. I really appreciate you asking. You're being nice here. It's being very assertive what you're saying. It's like, I really appreciate you asking, but I'm not comfortable sharing that story right now. I remember at Zoe's wake, I remember a mom came up with her daughter, and I think the daughter knew Zoe. There were a lot of people. There were over 900 people that came to Zoe's wake that night, and so grateful for that. And this poor woman came up, and I say poor woman only because she was so frantic. She was so afraid because her daughters had also been in adolescent units. Maybe knew Zoe, and she's like, she just said it like flat out. I'm sorry, but I have to know what happened to Zoe. And this is like in the middle of like the receiving line. And at first I was like, it caught me off guard. And I don't fault her for it. She was afraid. She didn't want something to happen to her daughter. And so it was just the moment. She just was overtaken by her emotion. And so I just said to her, I'm sorry, but I don't feel comfortable talking about that right now. I'm still processing it myself. So if anybody is nosy, if anybody's pushy tomorrow, you can say, thank you for asking, but I'm still processing it myself. And I'm not ready to talk about it. So I hope that helps if anybody's feeling that way. The other, let's see, it says some other comments in here. So Paula wrote, I had a friend ask me if my daughter was going to have another child, and she just lost her daughter 6 months ago. Way too personal. And I told her that person was sorry, I'm missing. Let's see what that says underneath there. Person, it's too personal to ask. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people don't really think things out before they say them. Sometimes, it's like, that's an awkward conversation. So first thing, there's no filter, right? It's just that whatever comes to their mind, they just spread it out. It's like, that's, I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, when the same thing as the lady said to me, like, oh, you're young, you can have more kids. Like, oh, why would anybody say that? That's what kind of runs through our heads. Why would you say that? It's not helpful. It's very hurtful. So hopefully your daughter was able, or she asked you if your daughter was going to have another child. And so Paula, yeah, like she's asking you that. And you're probably like, what? Did you just really ask me that question? And so I'm sorry that you got that question. I think that if people have not gone through the process of grief, they just don't know what to expect. I can tell you that before I lost Zoe, I had lost other people in my life. I wrote about it in my book, but when I lost Zoe, a lot more about grief became really clear in terms of what was going to be helpful, what was going to be hurtful. I remember somebody saying to me through my stepdaughter that, well, if Zoe would have just done this, she would still be here. And I didn't get angry at it. My understanding was that this person had never experienced a loss before. And so she was logically thinking about how to respond to that. And so without having the experience of losing a loved one, you're just going to think about some other ways to either have conversation or to ask questions without really fully thinking it out. So I'm sorry that question was asked, Paula. This is Jorge. Um, said that this is the first Thanksgiving without my daughter. Hey, Jorge, how you doing, bud? And close to a year since she passed away. Every day this week, I have been looking at the pictures and videos of her. Yeah, Jorge, that's you bring up a really good point, man. It's so hard. It's almost too unbelievable to be believable, right? It's so hard to even comprehend that they may not be here. I remember sitting in my office talking with one of my I shared an office with one of my coworkers, and after I went back to work, I would just be trying to concentrate. I couldn't because of the brain fog, and I just would stop and be like, man, this is weird. That's all I could. That's the only word I could put to it. It was just weird. And it was weird because it was too unbelievable. My brain was literally trying to put the pieces together that she wasn't here and wasn't coming back. And it was really hard to process that. And so I get that, Jorge. And so I guess my guidance for you tomorrow and tonight and this whole week is give yourself some grace, sir. I know this is hard. I know you've been trying to figure this out. And, the only way that we can figure this out is just to keep taking one step after the other. Every step any of you takes forward, it's all courage. It takes courage to breathe one more breath because they're not able to do that. It takes courage to wake up in the morning and even get out of bed. It takes courage to talk about your loved one. It takes courage to cry. It's a lot of courage that's involved in this. But we don't recognize it as courage. We recognize that a lot of times people think that emotions make us weak. Mm-mm. We are emotional beings. Emotions actually show that you're healthy and you're strong and you're processing. That's all there is to it. So I hope that helps out a little bit. I've tried to have grace for other people and just avoid those who don't have the filter. Yeah, I get that, Paula. That happens. And so hopefully as time goes by, you'll have less and less of those experiences. I don't ever want to shame somebody for not understanding this process. Not that I feel like, the best revenge is something happening to one of their loved ones, but I not at all. What I feel like is that they just don't know what this means, or they haven't had the opportunity to fully grieve one of their losses in life, and therefore it's all bottled up inside, and so they say stuff that is just not helpful. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is to take care of yourself. It's okay to do that today, tomorrow, the day after Thanksgiving, the next few weeks as you navigate in Christmas. I'm going to do another session like this around Christmas too. So I'm hoping this is helpful for you folks that are here, and I appreciate everybody staying on and listening in, because I think in this times like this is where we really feel connected, and when we are able to come together and talk about this stuff, Grief is not something to be, pushed aside or pushed down, not processed. It's something to be expressed in the way that we needed to express it. And I'm like, and it may be a little bit like Yolanda. Maybe we need that release. You know, sometimes that release can be a scream. Sometimes it could be a really long cry. Sometimes it could be a laugh, a belly laugh. It's okay. There's no wrong way to do this. And so I hope that helps some. So another question, I'm going to go back over to the questions that I received too. So I feel extra alone right now. This is somebody that wrote in and said, I feel extra alone right now. What can I do about that? And I feel as though Thanksgiving or the holidays, there's almost that extra element of feeling alone. And so, some things that I can think about for when you're feeling all alone, um, it is supposed to be about a time, about spending time with others, right? And when your loved one isn't here, that can almost feel like there's a massive void around you. And I remember this was probably a few years, 5 years after Zoe died. I'd sold my house and I moved up to Maine. And I don't know, something happened. I felt like I was feeling extra alone. Maybe it was just because I was in that house that I lived in for 11 years, and I was now living in a smaller house in Maine, and I felt I don't know. I felt like I kind of took some steps back on that, and I was waking up in the morning and I was crying like it was like right after Zoe died. I kept on saying, I'm so sorry, Zoe. I miss you. I was back to saying, I'm sorry. I miss you so much. But it was mainly, I miss you so much. That was the first words out of my mouth in the morning. And it got to the point where I woke up and I was crying for 20 minutes every morning again. And some that I finally realized that I was doing that and I was kind of stuck in this pattern. And so I spoke to a friend of mine, her name, I'll call her Brenda, who is also a coach. And I told her what was going on. And I told her, I said, I just feel all alone. Like there's this, you know, um, I don't know what it is. And she's like, Eric, let me ask you a question. What would it mean for you to let Zoe go? And guy, when she asked me that, I was like, I got mad. Like, what do you mean, let her go? What does that even mean? She's like, no, 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 no. Work with me. What does it mean for you to let Zoe go? Now, maybe you would feel the same thing I did, where I actually started to get upset. I couldn't talk because my tears were welling up. And I knew how it felt. I was mad because I knew how it would feel. It would feel, and the only thing I could say to her, I said, it would feel like there's a massive gap there and I would be all alone. And she said, Eric, you're not alone. And the gap is already there, man. And I was like, oh, but she said, but wait, what can you do to fill that gap? And I don't know, like that, I went from being really upset to being able to answer that question pretty quickly. I'm like, well, I can be helping other people to navigate their grief. I can connect with Zoe's friends. I can travel. I can learn new ways to share my story of Zoe. I can, all of that, everything that I was saying at that point was just filling me back up with some energy and direction. And it was in my mind kind of filling in that gap, if that makes sense. But she finished off, she said, Eric, that's the thing, man. It's not that you are letting go of Zoe because you're always going to love her. It's about letting go of the pain that's no longer serving you any longer. You don't have to carry both. So I choose now to just carry the love that I have for Zoe and remember those good times with her. I can't change anything that happened. I can't go back in time. But I certainly can cherish the memories that I do have of her, and I can move forward honoring Zoe's life by living mine because it's okay to do that. And so I hope that helps. Whoever asked that question, I feel extra alone right now. What can I do about that? And by the way, what you feel today, this is what you feel today. And in that moment, you might feel sad, you might feel angry, you might feel guilty. Those moments pass. What you feel today, you won't feel tomorrow. And what you feel today, you won't feel 3 years from now. Grief is a journey. There is no straight path through it. It's messy. It's scary. You're going to have good days where you feel like you're doing okay. And then maybe the next minute you're on the floor crying because you can't believe it. The only thing I would ask is that you just keep getting back up one more time that you get knocked down. And you do that by just taking a step forward, breathing through those moments, processing your emotions, being okay with feeling what you're feeling and when you're feeling it. That's grief. There are better days ahead. And if your loss is relatively recent and there's absolutely no way you feel that right now, that's okay. Just please know that for anybody who has navigated this path, this journey, there are better days ahead. I didn't believe that at first. I didn't think there were going to be good days. I wasn't sure I was going to survive losing Zoe. I wasn't sure how I was going to make it to the next day, let alone the next hour sometimes. But I did. And everybody's different in how they process this. But again, it's not, there isn't just one way to navigate this. It's the one way that works for you. There's no timeline. There's no timeline for how you feel better or when you feel better. There is no agenda or pace but your own. And I have to constantly remind myself of that. And if it's something that you forget, then I invite you to write that down. There's no timeline. There's no agenda. And there's no pace but my own. So I hope that helps some. So how do you deal with, I think it's difficult when your husband and others grieve differently from you. How do you deal with those differences? So that's a really good question, Paula. The dealing with the differences is honestly, it's a dialogue between the other people that may be involved in this, in the grief as well, the same person. When I'm talking about dialogue, you're probably grieving differently than your husband. And there's nothing wrong with that because this is how he's choosing to navigate this. What I would invite you to do is to have a sit-down conversation with him where you both can share what is going to be helpful for you as you navigate this. Maybe he doesn't want to talk about it. Maybe you do. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe he is angry and doesn't want to get upset or upset you. Whatever the situation may be, some people are more internalized with their grief. Having the dialogue and saying, look, I know this is bothering you. If you've been with your husband for a while, you probably know how he deals with difficult situations. And so perhaps having the conversation with him and saying, I know this is really hard for you. And I know you don't like to talk about these things, but please know that this is hard for both of us. And so I want to be able to share with you when I can. And I want you to share with me when you can, because this together is how we're going to navigate this together. And you guys can be stronger for that. And it's hard. You may have situations or times when you both are crying just for hours at a time, but you have each other's back. You're feeling it. It's emotional. It's a hard process. So I hope, Paula, that helps a little bit. And so let's see here. Thank you for this. Yeah, you're welcome, Jeanette. I'm glad it was helpful. So now let's see. That's the other questions that we've got here. So yeah, again, tomorrow, one person asked me, I know this was asked earlier on the call too, is I'm worried I'm going to be emotional tomorrow and get really upset. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose it. And so how can I not get that way? Here's the thing. The emotions are going to come whether you want them to or not. And when they come, there may be no telling. You may be able to get through a day tomorrow and not even shed a tear. Who knows? But if you get to a place where you feel like you're starting to well up, deep breath, maybe 2 deep breaths. But when you brace, when you when you hold your breath because you don't want to say anything, it's going to actually build up a head of steam and it might come out even harder. So really try to just breathe. Give a couple of lower body breaths if you can, and say the lower body. So here's the thing with grief is that, humans for 250,000 years, we've had this system in our bodies that is the fight, flight, and freeze mechanism. Or another way of putting it is the sympathetic nervous system. This was meant to protect us back when our early ancestors were foraging for food and getting into dangerous situations. It's meant to prepare your body for short-term protection, if you will. And so when we're in this fight, flight, and freeze mode, we're highly emotional. And grief puts us up in that highly emotional state. And we stay there. Our bodies are not designed to stay in that state for very long. The cortisol level goes up, which is our stress hormone. Our breathing gets shallow, which means that we're just getting enough air to survive, which in effect is actually affecting our brain. So the way that we can go from this fight, flight, and freeze mode, being highly emotional, to calm and connected, where we can actually think more clearly, is we do that through breath. And that's what's known as a parasympathetic state. Now, the good news is you have the ability to do that without needing tools or techniques. It's already built into your system. See, our gut has neurons in it, and our vagal nervous system goes from the back of our head all the way down into our gut. That's why you get those gut feelings. Listen to them, by the way. They're true. So, but when we are stressed out, we stop breathing. It activates that sympathetic nervous system, that fight, flight, and freeze mechanism, and our breathing gets shallow. But we can return to a parasympathetic state, that calm and connect state, by doing some lower body breaths. Why? Because now we're getting more oxygen in the system. We're literally telling our brain, I'm not in that danger zone. I'm not in that danger zone. So if at all possible, I'm just going to lower my monitor here. Don't make fun of my belly. So when you're breathing, a lower body breath looks like this. When you inhale, you extend your belly, you push your belly out. And when you exhale, you push your belly to your spine. Now, that may be difficult. So, but just try that. It's a lower body breath. And what you're doing is every time you're breathing, you're filling up your lungs fully. You're not getting air up here. You're not shallow breathing. Your breath goes all the way down into the bottom of your lungs, which goes right to the bottom of your rib cage. So breathing is really powerful in terms of releasing that sympathetic nervous state and letting you kind of calm. Now, when you're sleeping, you're in a parasympathetic state. And for anybody that can sleep right now, when you are resting, you're in a parasympathetic state. And so, but throughout the day, when we start thinking about those things that are stressing us out, your brain kind of brings you right back up to that sympathetic state. So being able to breathe, diaphragmatic breath, lower body breath, 5 of them, 3 to 5 of those things, and you should start to feel a little bit of relief and release from that high tension. So I hope that helps some. So let's see here. I'm really sorry, Dot, that you've had a hard time since your husband passed on September 11. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong in terms of how this feels, Dot. It's a numbness, and as we approach the holidays, it can be even harder to navigate those days and really, think about how we're going to make it through. And so, for you, there's no wrong way to navigate this. There may be a time when you do feel the emotion come on, and maybe in the meantime, you can connect with a counselor or a therapist or a coach who can help you navigate this process, this journey. You could be numb right now. You could be in a state where you're not feeling happy, sad, or anything. It's just kind of like a state of just like a holding pattern almost of emotions. And I've seen that too. Again, it's not wrong. It's just how your brain is processing the grief at this point. Like there could be a lot of fog in there, right? Where it's really hard to think about things, what make decisions to do the next thing. It's just there's numbness there. And sometimes eventually the numbness does wear down. And at that point, that's when it can be really helpful to have somebody who you're talking to on a consistent basis be there for when that opens up, when the emotions do start to come out. And so I hope that helps a little bit, Dot. So yeah, so I feel like what's next? Yeah, that's a really good question. Like you're wondering, Dot, if just for clarity here, you're like what's next for your life? What do I do about this? Where do I go? All those questions. And let me know if that's what you mean by that. But yeah, I think like what's next? So, there's this piece of grief where it's like, okay, this isn't the way things were supposed to be going at all. Like I had plans. We had plans. You're my person, and you're supposed to be here, and now you're not here. What am I supposed to do with that? Like, what's next for my life? And so, thank you, Dot, for clarifying that. But yeah, like, what's next for my life here? So, here's the thing. Your husband passed recently. This is still very fresh. As you start to navigate this journey, one, please get connected to some sort of support system. And I'm talking about, again, an online group or an in-person group or a coach or a counselor, somebody that you can have these conversations with on a pretty frequent basis. Why? Because they're going to understand where you are and what you need and be able to provide some guidance on that. But for what's next in your life, I would invite you to think about, what you need right now for yourself to navigate this grief. We don't know what tomorrow holds for us, right? Tomorrow's not promised to us, as we know. And so to be able to figure out what's next for your life, then maybe that's a question that gets asked a little bit further down on the journey. Once you've had some time to truly process the grief and figure out maybe what you want to do next. And you don't have to have it all figured out right now. So starting a group next week. Oh, I'm really happy to hear that, Dot. I think that's going to be very helpful. Hopefully you'll meet some people in this group that are going to be able to have conversations with them on a frequent basis. I can't guarantee you there's other people in that group that are going to be like, yep, I know exactly what you're feeling. I felt the same way. So, so maybe they can share their experience too of what worked for them in that case. So I didn't have any numbness, and so I don't want to, like say that I did. But I had shock, right? I had disbelief. I had guilt and all these things. So all our emotions were all different in how we are going to approach the grief that's in front of us. And so, but you're bringing up a wonderful point here in that, a lot of times people do ask, what's next for my life? And of course, I asked that same question after Zoe died. And I asked it at different points of my journey. And I believe in the first probably 6 to 12 months, if I asked that question, there was like just a blank space in my head. I couldn't think of anything. I didn't know what was next. I was just trying to get through the next day. And so the only thing that could actually help me get there to what was next for my life was to just keep taking that next step forward. I chose to actively connect with Zoe's friends every day. Not all of them, but, reach out and speak to them, talk to my stepdaughter, talk to my stepson, check in. I had family and friends checking in on me, but it was really Zoe's friends that made me think differently about why I was here and what was next for my life. When they came to me and they say, what are we supposed to do with this? And I don't know. I mean, I didn't know. But I did know this, is that at no point was anybody else going to follow suit, but that we were all going to find a way to get through this together. That's the power of a group. That's the power of a community, of a group that is like-minded folks who understand where we're at and that we're all going to fight for each other to find our better days. And that may be where we spend a lot of our time in the early stages of our grief. We have to process this. Nobody can process this for us as much as we would want to. Nobody can take the pain away from us as much as we would want to. So the next best thing is to connect with others who can be there with you, who have your back, who can support you every step of the way. That's really one of the best ways that we can navigate this through. So it's a really wonderful question. So I'm like Dot in losing my husband. It was 33 years. I don't know what's next, but I'm moving forward. And that's it, Grindel. I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, is that, yeah, it's the only thing we can do is just take the next step in front of us. The pathway will open up if you stay still. If you want to stay stuck, if you want to stay in survival mode for the rest of your life, you can. The survival mode is meant to be temporary anyway. You can choose to get back up and live beyond the loss of your loved one. It's a choice. It's not either way, by the way. If you choose to stay stuck, it's actually harder. If you choose to move forward, it's still hard. But, and they say this, I don't know if you've heard this before or not, but there are two pains in this world. There's the pain of regret and there's the pain of discipline. I don't really consider grief support and navigating grief discipline, but the whole premise is that you either regret not doing anything about it and just stay stuck for the rest of your days, or you take steps forward like Grindel is doing and you find ways to navigate your path. And most likely, others will show up. Every step you take forward, you're getting closer to other people coming to you and walking with you at certain points of your grief journey. And maybe they're there temporarily just to help you navigate a specific part of your journey or a milestone. Maybe they're there to help you to, take that next step forward to break through a barrier that's been holding you back for a long time. Maybe you're just done with being stuck and you're like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I need to live my life. I want to live my life. And everybody's different, guys. Everybody's different. So really good points, though. I hope this helps everybody here. So let's see. I've got some other questions here I'm going to say here or talk about here. Let's see. Yeah. So what self-care practices can be helpful? That was a really good question that I received because, tomorrow, especially as you're navigating the day, what can you do from terms of the self-care? Well, you can do the breathing like I shared with you a few minutes ago, that lower body breath, deep breath, just let it go. Deep breath, let it go. Release. The release is on the exhale. Do 3 to 5 of those breaths. That's really good for self-care. Making your plan for tomorrow. Again, if anybody's coming in a little bit late to the call here, it's making your plan, doing what you can do tomorrow, and being okay with that, no matter what that is. So if you have to change plans, so be it. There's no obligation to anybody but yourself. So another self-care practice could be maybe you want to journal in the morning. Some people, I like to journal. I have a journal here that I write in every single morning. I have thoughts in here. It's also a day planner, but I also write thoughts and stuff like that and notes. But it's another way for me to kind of just get what's up here out of my head and on paper. Then I forget about it at that point. So that's another way, self-care. But just taking care of yourself, because it's okay to do that too. Being okay. Another self-care practice, honestly, is being not beating yourself up. Giving yourself permission to do as much as you can do tomorrow is self-care. Giving yourself permission to just see how the day unfolds. Take it moment by moment. Maybe you are okay in the morning and you're getting dressed and you're ready to go out. And then at that last minute, you're like, nope, not going to do it. I'm good. That's okay. Maybe you get up in the morning, you're like, I don't want to do anything. Okay, maybe I do want to do so. Okay, actually, I'm going to get dressed. And actually, you actually wind up having a fantastic time with family and friends, things you weren't expecting. You don't know. So it's the best way to navigate this is just one moment at a time, one step at a time. So let's see. So what's another question here? Um, oh, here's one. What do I do about my usual holiday traditions? Um, sorry, I'm trying to understand this question here. What do I do about my usual holiday traditions? Should I change them? Okay, gotcha. So that's a really good question. I would say the same thing. Do as much as you can do. Holiday traditions are there. Why? Because it brings some routine. It kind of can help bring you back to the center and feeling like you're grounded. Too much change. I don't think a lot of people do great with too much change all at once. So as much as you can bring tradition back into your day tomorrow, then do that. Maybe it's just sitting around watching the parade, having a good cry during the parade, especially when the turkey rolls by or whatever stage that is. So, but it's how much of the tradition, how much do you want to preserve of the tradition? We are more interested, I think, in trying to figure out what we can preserve than what we can change. So whatever you can preserve for the day tomorrow that actually makes you feel okay, then do that. Maybe it'll feel okay today, or sorry, tomorrow. Um, Maybe it won't feel that same way next year. Maybe next year you introduce one new tradition, or maybe you stop doing something that you did because it was sacred with you and your loved one. That's okay too. So maybe next year you can write about that and share that story with things that you used to do with your loved one. So traditions are something that are, it's kind of feeling it out, what works for you, what you like to do. But yeah, I think there's that. Hopefully that's helpful. Now, are there people in your life who are aware of your loss and can provide support during the holidays? Oh, yeah. So, and by the way, guys, you're not seeing those questions. Those were questions that were sent to me ahead of the call here. So, are there people in your life who are aware of your loss and can provide support during the holidays? So, I think what they're saying here is, you know, who in my very close sphere of family and friends do I trust, who have just consistently showed up for me, have checked in on me, have um, made sure that I had what I needed to navigate the holiday, or even just any day. Forget about the holidays, but to any day of this loss, of the grief journey. Um, yeah, I think that's really important to find one of those two people. And I apologize. I can probably scroll up here. I think it was hold on. Somebody said that they had a really close friend, that they had one person that they could spend some time with. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, that's really it. I think it's really, yeah, right here. So it was Jeanette who said, "What matters most to me is having one good friend to be with me at this time." I don't think there's anything better. I really don't think there's anything better than that. Um, why? Because there's just no expectations, which is how the day should go anyway. There should be no expectations about what you do, where you go, how long you're there, anything like that. There's no obligation. It's just what works for you. So carrying that same kind of feeling of like there's no expectations here. Like if Jeanette's got a really good friend who's going to be with her, fantastic. Fantastic, because there won't be any expectations. Maybe Jeanette and her friend are just going to sit around and just watch TV and order in. Who knows? All right. So it doesn't really matter as long as it works for you. So, by the way, guys, I know we've got about maybe 12 more minutes here, but I really appreciate everybody staying on for this time. I hope this is helpful. It's been helpful. Please let me know in the comments. Please let me know if there's anything that I'm missing, or if you have a specific question that I can answer for you before we finish up tonight. I just appreciate you being on here, and I'm hopeful this is helpful for you as you approach tomorrow, because I know this isn't easy. This journey is just filled with so many questions. And it's one of the reasons why I created the series in the first place, the video series, Grief Questions Answered, because I get so many questions from folks who are just trying to figure out how to make it through their loss, and everybody's loss is different. So yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate that it's helping some. So I'm glad that it does helping. So yeah, this is one of those things where we wish we had a different outcome. We are going into tomorrow with as much hope and that it's going to be okay, and we can make it okay. We can't change what happened, but we can change what happens next. And for us, that means taking the steps that we need to take care of ourselves, because it's okay to do that. It's to navigate the path as the best way possible. And I'm really glad, Paula. Thank you, by the way. I appreciate that this has been helpful for you. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you liked the book. I'm going through a rewrite of it right now, like a second edition. There's some things I want to add. There's some things I want to update. I think the writing could have been a little better, if I'm just being honest. But I wrote that from the heart, and what started off as just a bunch of stories turned into a book that's been out now for about 5 years. And so, if anybody would like to, pick up the book, you know what I said? I said I'm not going to do any type of talking about anything that I've got. But if anybody does have questions, by the way, after this that come up, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to put in my email address. And if you have any questions, you can email me. You can email me, and I would love to answer those. If there's anything that comes up after this, it probably will become a video for the series, because I love getting these questions. And I say I love getting them because I know that whenever you guys ask me a question, I'm thinking back to when the same thing happened on my journey. And that's the thing. Grief is like a fingerprint. Like, everyone's experience is different, but there's a lot of similarities in that process. So it's all unique. Everybody's experience is unique in this, but there are a lot of similarities that we can share, and we can grow, and we can heal together as we're navigating this path. So the name of the book is called A Sherpa Named Zoe, Zoi, and it's available on Amazon. I am doing a small promotion here where it's what I'm calling free plus shipping. Basically, if you cover the cost of the shipping of the book, I'll send you the book. If it's okay with you, it would be okay with you guys if I actually drop that link in here where you can pick up a copy of the book. It's just $6.95 for the shipping and the handling. But that just covers my capacity to be able to mail it. But I went ahead and covered the cost of the printing of the book. And so, okay, so let me just send that out to you. So it's going to be make sure I'm spelling it right here. Okay, there we go. So it's www.yourjourneyguided.com/free grief book. And you can get a copy of the book itself. It's a physical copy of the book. I'll mail it out to you. If you so like to, I actually recorded the audio version of the book. That's available if you wanted to pick up a copy of that. And then, if at all possible, if you wanted to go through, there's a process that I developed when I wrote the book called MAPS, which allows you to navigate the questions that you have in grief. And so I'm offering an opportunity for you to take part in like it's an online course, if you will, for navigating those questions. But yeah, so I appreciate you guys asking on that. And thank you, Paula, for putting in the title of the book. It's available on Amazon, but it's $14.95 on Amazon. This way it's a little bit less expensive to grab your copy. So, but I appreciate this. You guys have been absolutely wonderful tonight. I appreciate the questions. Again, I hope this was helpful. Let's see if there's any more questions that have popped up here that came in. Some of these questions you guys have already asked. And so, yeah, okay. One question came up. It says, look, if I'm having a really hard time, should I consider seeing a professional? So here's the thing, that sometimes the holidays can be really, really tough for people, to the point where you feel like, I just can't go on. If any of you who are watching this now or watching it later are at a place where you feel like you just cannot carry on one more day, there's two things I need you to do. The first is to call 988. If you're thinking about hurting yourself, please do not. There are people out there that will listen that can help you get to the resources. The other thing that you can do is if you feel like you're just struggling through this, going day to day, it's a slog every single day, trying to navigate your way through your grief. You're not at that place. You feel like you're going to hurt yourself, but you're just not sure what to do. And you're not sure there's going to be better days ahead of you for you at all. Then please connect with a counselor or a coach. It's so important to be able to have conversations with someone that understands what you're going through and can help you navigate those difficult moments. So many years before Zoe died, Zoe's mom and I got a divorce, and I'm telling you that it was the hardest setback of my life up to that point. Losing Zoe was harder, of course, but that divorce put me in a very deep depression for 3 years. I didn't care. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go anywhere. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to go to work. I couldn't think straight. I just was in shock that this was happening. And so, how does that sound? Doesn't that sound like grief? Right? There's a lot of similarities there. And so, it took a long time for me to figure out that nobody was coming to save me from this pain of this loss of my relationship, of my marriage. My parents are married. They're still around, but they're married. They've been married for 60 years. I'm not suggesting that anybody that comes from a family that has divorced parents that it's going to be the same thing going to happen to them. But this was new for me. I didn't, even my ex's parents were still married. So this concept of divorce was just not, I couldn't put it together. And so as much as I tried to figure out how to make everything work, it wasn't going to. And so, but that just took me for a loop. I went down into this abyss of just darkness. I was comfortably uncomfortable there, if that makes any sense. And I stayed there for a long time. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to hang out with people. I avoided the holidays sometimes. I just didn't find a way to care about it. It was really strange. So I began to see a therapist who helped me to really understand what it was that was stopping me from healing in the first place. And so one of the biggest breakthroughs that I experienced was that it was all around my mindset, that I had been thinking a certain way for such a long time that I was playing old tapes in my head of the way I thought things should be going. I should not be here. I should be married. I should have the access to my family and my girls all of the time. I shouldn't have to see them on the weekends or every other Tuesday, right? All that was my mindset. The biggest breakthrough was that it had nothing to do with, what trying to save the marriage or anything in that point. It was about my mindset. How could I reframe my mindset so that I could then focus on not the pain I was feeling and the loss itself, what more importantly, like how could I be there for my girls who needed their dad? How could I be there for my family and my friends? How could I be there for myself? Because that's okay. So once I started to break through that and start to realize that it was okay for me to be there for the girls and to be there for myself and to be there for my friends and family, I just started to feel like I broke through that barrier that was holding me back. And I came out of that depression pretty quickly at that point. And I started to see things a little differently. I started to date again. I started to go places with the girls and was excited to see them on the weekends, even though it was only every weekend and every other Tuesday, whatever. It was okay. Like I had to make it work with what I had available to me. I had to do the best with that because nothing else was going to change. So nothing else was going to change unless I took that first step. And so as we approach the holidays and as we wrap up here, guys, the holidays are tough. Tomorrow, I invite you to just take 1 minute at a time. Just be in the moment. When you start to worry about maybe how you're going to feel later on in the day, or if you start to worry If you feel like things are going to start happening when you're at this at a gathering, um, do as much as you can do. Have your plan, and if you start to feel like you're starting to get having a difficult time, don't forget to breathe, that lower body breath a few times. Give yourself a break. You're grieving. It's not going to be perfect, and it may actually turn out to be better than you expected. So, as always, guys, I hope this helps. This replay is going to be available on my channel. And so I appreciate you being here tonight. You've asked some wonderful questions, and I really, really hope that your holiday tomorrow is good as it can be. And I'm heartily sorry for everyone's loss, because I know this isn't easy. But you are loved, you are supported, and let's continue to walk together. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll talk to you soon.